and it totally allowed me to focus on other stuff. And so really, if you look at business as being that your goal is not necessarily to be the doer. Your goal is really to be the orchestrator, that you have to find people that are long-term solutions for you to really be focused on the things that are most important. And so really building a team is all about that. And the beauty of having a profit model first is that you don't need a team of 2,000 people, even if you want to build a small business, because you're very focused on the things that your business is going to be doing. And so you know what areas need to be covered. And once you get those areas covered, you're good to go, like as far as like not really having to do a lot for your business. So that's where it all kind of starts for me, is in the sense of an understanding that my goal is not to get the job done, although that's important. My goal is to find someone who can consistently get the job done for me. There are some other distinctions. I'll just share one other distinction here, and then I'll pass it back to you, and then you can just follow up on the question and take me wherever you want to go. The other thing, though, and I kind of alluded to this in the profit model, but I want to say this specifically, is that, you're not handing off tasks, you're handing off responsibilities. And I see this violated more so than probably anything else when it comes to teams and outsourcing or employees. When I get involved in quite a few businesses that they're already doing a couple $1 million, but it's really still a small business, and the owner is really the driver. Very often what I find is that the only person in the company that's responsible for profits is the owner. And that really, so really it's like the owner and the owner has lots of assistants, all handling different areas of the business for them. And that's not really the way a team is supposed to work or a business is supposed to work. Ultimately, your goal should be to have someone else in your business responsible for driving profits, so that it's like a full-time job, to sell, to get things sold. It's mind-boggling to me how pretty much almost all the online businesses I see that were started by, people that were ambitious, that were successful, are still lacking in that area, that the owner is still the sole person responsible for profits. And it could be as simple as like, I create a product, we launch it, we make lots of money, and then me handing it off to someone in the office who now is the product manager for that, they're either you want to call it profit center manager or product manager, whatever you want to call it, whose job is to make sure that we consistently sell that product. And so when we sit down for our team meeting, like they're going to tell me what they're doing this week to sell more of that product. And that's a big shift for a lot of people, because apparently not too many people think that way. But that's like just one of the biggest violations I see. But you could translate that into other areas. I just think that that's primary, and I just see everybody violate that. But not everybody, but close to it, especially in internet marketing. But same thing, like ideally what you want to be handing off in any area is responsibility, not abdicate responsibility. It's not the first time you work with someone do you give them the responsibility. But long term, the goal is that you don't have to be involved at all in the business or in that individual area. And so the last thing that you want to do is just have a lot of outsourcers or team members who are reliant on you for direction, because then you still are very necessary to the business for it to function properly, even if you have great people. And so it's a really important distinction that you are trying to hand off responsibilities as opposed to tasks.
And I think that insight that you gave there as far as getting someone else to follow up and drive those profits leads into what you were talking about earlier, the idea that, people get focused in on that back end and they forget you need to have someone out there drumming up that new business. So that sort of really dovetails quite nicely.
Yeah, and I would just add that, really and I learned this from Agora, because I worked a lot with Agora, and that's why I wrote that final chapter. And I think, like, as far as the content goes, probably the content, it was best of all my free reports, it was in the final chapter. It had a lot of ideas in it, so it was a little bit of a more difficult read for some people. But because what I talk about in there is that Agora, and this is really the way it needs to be done, as evidenced by the fact that Agora is like a $400 million company now. Agora puts their best people on the front end, because like I said earlier, it's a lot easier to sell the back end. There's a lot more money in the back end, but here's the concept. It's the most difficult sale to make is the first sale, especially when someone doesn't know you. Because even a JV is it's like night and day. I mean, because if I'm on, your list, Dave, and you say, and I trust you, and you say this person's got a great product, that's such a big step from me doing a search in pay-per-click and finding a product and now buying it. And that's what you need to be able to get people who've never heard of you, don't know who any of your testimonials are, engaged and interested, and then ultimately becoming a customer. So what Agora's always done is they put their best people on the front end, realizing that that's the most difficult part. It's also the part that lets you stay in touch with the market. And this is what I wrote about, I think, in the final chapter, if I remember correctly, that the front end, making something work on the front end, besides it being a vehicle to grow your business because it is the lifeblood of the business, it also lets you know what back ends are going to crush it, because your list of customers is a reflection of the market. The only difference is that you have a relationship with them. So what Agora often did was they would, create front-end promotion until one rocked. When that one rocked, they would then take that $49 product and expand it out and turn it into a much bigger, better product, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 product, and then sell that on the back end to all their customers. And that was, that's an incredibly effective strategy, because their back ends crush it because of the information they're getting on the front end, and their business consistently grows because they're constantly adding more and more people to the mix. And, it's a Drucker quote that, the only two things a business does, marketing and innovation, all the rest are costs. And I think it's another Drucker quote that says the sole purpose of a business is to create a customer. And if you really buy into that, then the hardest thing to do is to create a customer. And that's really where the owner needs to be focused and allow other people to do the stuff that is easier and also not as where the business is so dependent on for its lifeblood and survival.